Here we go. What are we going to be talking about this week?
Well, this is our extra turn, round 10 extra turn. And today we are going to be covering the year that was 2020, but we'll be sticking to the positive parts of 2020 that are the board game stories and
all
the best
three
games.
of
We're
them.
going to be giving you our top 3 new to us games of the year. And then Tom and I are also just going to do sort of a recap of the year, most important games, favorite expansions, all the little bits and bobs there.
And we'll also be we're talking about 2020 release. We'll give you a review in this episode as well, since Maddie and I never get to podcast together. We're going to be doing Hallertau, the one and only Uwe Rosenberg design 2020. We look forward to getting into this one too. It's going to be good.
I've been told it's the final big box game ever from Uwe Rosenberg.
I hope that's not true. I hope that's, I hope that's like
this might be it.
I hope it's like this is the last time the Rolling Stones will ever tour.
Yeah, exactly.
I have a feeling that tends, or I'm getting off Twitter forever.
Right. Sure.
Another one of those sorts of things. But we'll see. Maybe it will be. Maybe it won't. How are you doing, Maddie? The weird thing is that you and I are on such opposite schedules. Like generally the time that you can play games is around middle of the day, and that is the worst time for me to play games. And so our schedules are so off. I can't remember. Other than this week, I can't remember the last time I played a game with you.
Yeah, we're ships in the night. I can only take a sort of lunchtime 2-hour max break a couple times a week at most. That's sort of the only gaming I can do. So yeah, I haven't played an 18xx game in a year because of that. Yeah. But yeah, also, then, I'm not free till 9:00 at night usually because I have to put my children down and clean and do all this stuff at the house.
Sure.
And then the last thing I want to do is think. So that's pretty much it. Yeah. You can't take 2-hour lunch breaks in the day with your writing partner, et cetera.
No. And I'm up writing at 6 a.m. So starting a game at 9:00 doesn't really work for me either. So it's a bad situation. It's a bad situation, but I'm glad to be on talking to you. I miss you, buddy.
Miss you too, man. Hopefully, I'm taking my mom to Dodger Stadium in a couple hours to get her first shot. God willing, that all goes to plan. But
fingers crossed.
I think we're at the beginning of the process of getting back to normal here, and it'll be a long process. But I'm very confident that you and I will be sitting across from each other with a lot of cardboard between us at some point in 2021.
I completely concur with that. I think it's coming, and I hope it's coming sooner rather than later. I hope we're going to have a very fun summer. That's the
sad part that I don't want to face is nothing's going to change in my schedule. So what am I going to do? Show up to game night at 9:00? So I don't even want to get to that part yet. But yeah, I don't know.
Well, Maddie and I have the same agent, Harley Copen. And Harley said the funniest thing. He said, yeah, you know what? We're just kind of all screenwriters in 2020 now. Everybody has a screenwriter schedule. Pretty much the way it goes. Shall we get into this week's game night and find out what we've been playing lately?
Not playing together? Let's do it.
Game night. Maddie, what you been playing? What you been doing these days?
Well, I got my first game of Agricola in. I'm not sure if you listened to
I did.
2 episodes ago, but
I'm excited
I'm
about
on
this.
I'm on a journey to become the greatest Agricola player in the world. And so I started a game. I played with 2 wonderful Game Brain listeners as well as Trey. And we had a very fun game on TTS, playing with revised edition decks A through D. And we had a rousing game. I believe I came in last place, but you got to start somewhere. And I will be the crowned Agricola champion at some point worldwide, the number one. I'll quit my job, become a professional Agricola player.
Look, all it takes is $1 and a dream. I believe that. Everybody needs a dream. What's your dream?
Chip in a chair.
Chip in a chair.
What else? I've been playing. I played Renature with my wife, which is a fun new Kramer Kiesling domino area majority. It's really an area majority game, an area control fighting game, but very fun, very beautiful domino components for that. My wife liked it enough to play it once with me. I don't know if we'll get it back to the table.
Sure.
And I've been playing a lot of Feast for Odin Norwegians solo. Nice. I've been going on an UVA kick, as we know, and that has been very enjoyable for me. And of course, I'm very obsessed with Anachrony Fractures of Time, which is, just going to say now, I think a never play without expansion. I think it really ups the decision space becomes really interesting. I think it makes it a lot more interactive.
Well, when you and I reviewed it, that was one of the first things we both agreed, which is that this is a great base of a game. And to really kick it up, it was a good, 8 or 9. To kick it up to a 10, it just needs a little more things going on. There are more options, more variety of choices and options. And this game could easily be a full-on 10, right?
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's a 10, but I think it's improved enough to not play without it again. And we'll review it at some point, but I'll just give you the two main things that I think really improve it here. Is that breakthroughs before really only had one purpose, which was to buy super projects, which are very expensive. You maybe buy 1 or 2 in a game, and you had to play this dice rolling thing that was not necessarily all that fun, and luck could have been a big part of it, or at least just really slow you down if you didn't get the exact symbol you needed. Yep. But now breakthroughs have a second purpose, and you can use them to improve your blink device, which is really fun, and also a great way of making some end game victory points as well. So they have 2 purposes now, which really helps. There's the anomalies that you get when you've time traveled too many times and messed up are now a deck of different anomalies. And so the decision of when to get an anomaly, and some of these anomalies actually aren't necessarily all that bad, is a really fun jockeying thing. Really? And then just lastly, the blinking is great because it makes this very tactical, push your luck. I need to move this guy out of here. You don't have to have 5 exosuits every round anymore to be competitive. You actually can be wildly competitive with 2 if you've got the ability to blink around. And so the fact that you can only really, with 2 exosuits, you can be jumping around doing just as many actions as you would if you had 4 exosuits. Interesting. But then you're opening up those spaces. So going first now isn't as important because somebody's going to probably move out of the build space and let you in there. It's just a matter of when they do it, which I think could be really fun.
Oh, that sounds like a lot of good little tweaks and a little variety. I mean, tweaks is the wrong word because tweaks would say that they're fixing something that wasn't working, and there's nothing in the base game of Anachrony that doesn't work. But it was definitely one of those things where I'm like, I love this, I want more, and it sounds like this is more. That's great.
Yeah. And apparently a TTS mod is in the works, so hopefully we can get a game of it soon.
Oh, that'd be great. Would love it. And is your back recovered from lifting the box?
I haven't even bothered to lift the box. It's just been open on my table for about 3 weeks now. I'll let you know what happens when I eventually pack it back up.
It seems so absurdly oversized. It is.
Well, it's crazy because it's a medium weight Euro. What medium weight? I mean, it really is. It's not more than that, and it's not like
it's medium. It's medium heavy. Come on.
But it's not this insane campaign game or something. It's a 2-hour game, but like. The fact that it has this giant box is absurd.
It broke the box rule for me. I mean, generally, there are some boxes that are really huge, and I'm like, does Feast for Odin really need to be in that big a box? And a few other games, but this one just broke the bag.
It doesn't even fit in the Kallax. Sticks out.
Speaking of big and heavy, Crokinole at my household is getting so much play. My wife is obsessed with it. She wants multiple tournaments every single night. That's her.
That's amazing.
Well, she's a kindergarten teacher virtually, which means she's in 50-minute Zoom sessions with 20 some odd kindergartners, and then gets a 10-minute break, and then is in another 50-minute Zoom session. Repeat that 7 times, and that's her day. She definitely doesn't want to play anything that's too thinky. She wants to be able to turn her brain off and have some fun, and Crokinole is feeding her. It's really great for her. She does a tournament with me, and then she does a tournament with my son. And my daughter just won't. She won't do it. She won't. She'll play. We play 4-player occasionally, and she'll do that. But generally,
well, I love that listener meme up on this has sent us that. You know what's funny? I've never played Crokinole. I don't even know how you play it.
Dude, it's awesome. It's
never played it.
Could not be a simpler flick it game. It's basically, if you know anything about, and you might not, but if you understand the basics of curling, it's basically that. Basically, there's you're flicking a disc, and there are 3 rings. There is the 5-point ring, which is the outer ring, the 10-point ring, which is the middle ring, and the 15-point ring, which is the inner ring. The 15-point ring has posts, has about 8 or 10 posts mounted around it. So it's hard to get in there. Not that hard, but it's,
you got to swish it.
And the posts have a little bit of give to them, so they bounce, so things can bounce and ricochet and all that sort of stuff. And then at the very center, there's a small indentation where a disc can fall and stop and get trapped. That's a 20-point score there. And when you score that 20-point, that comes off the table. That's points that are banked as opposed to the rest where anything can be knocked out at any time. People take turns knocking out and trying to get the best score. You add up the person with the most points on a given round, subtract the person with the least, and that's that person's score.
I did watch one like YouTube video once of like a tournament of people playing it, and it looks sort of like bowling, where it's like you get so good that unless you're getting a strike, you're missing. So it's like it's just a matter of who can get the most shots in the middle in a row, and it's more about who messes up rather than who is better. Right?
So here's the thing about that. Yeah, if you can shoot reliably your first disc and get it in that center hole, and the other person can do that, then basically you're just free throws. You're just having a free throw competition.
Yeah, it's like bowling, right? It's like it's just who misses the most strikes.
At a certain point, it can get to that. None of us are there yet at all, unless my son is. My son could be. So here's the thing: Aiden is 2 years and several months older than his sister. And he always he loves games. He's a gamer. He wants to play games with the whole family. My daughter does not like games generally. She's like a casual gamer. We had an episode with both of them on, and she adequately explained exactly her position on it. So he realized quite early on when I would have conversations about him, like, why doesn't Soleil want to ever play these games? I'm like, well, I think she's younger, so she's going to lose more often, and losing isn't very fun, right? And all that sort of stuff. And Aiden started to learn how to occasionally just, tank a game a little bit and
pump the brakes.
Well, more than that, make moves. He's very smart. He's very advanced, and he would be able to make moves that would benefit her in such a way to, king make a little bit and set her up for the win. So there was a time a few weeks ago when I was playing a game with Aiden, and he got like 3 or 4 right in that center hole in Crokinole in a row.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just like, uh-oh. Has this been solved? Has Aiden solved this game? But then he plays with his mother, and she wins more than she should. Let's just say that. I think he is being a very good son and is tanking for her. And so I don't know. He might be good enough that the game is broken for him, and he's just playing around. I can't tell, though.
Well, I don't know if it's broken. Those people seem to enjoy it in the tournament. It's just a matter of like, psychic. Is that maybe it becomes like a mind game at that point?
I guess it could. I don't know enough.
Who can handle the pressure? I
haven't played it enough to be able to tell. I mean, I'm a huge fan of Pitch Car, Carabande in the original version, which is a flicking game where your flicks are race cars, and I have like 5 expansions for it. So I have a big...
Oh, I know. I bought it and then sold it because you had it and I tried it once and I liked it and then I realized I'm never going to play this again.
Well, it is definitely polarizing. Some people get very upset about it when they come over for game night and they see the pitch car setup. But
yeah,
I have to tell you, I think that there's a 99% chance that the very first game night, when I invite people over for game night, when they walk in the door, there's going to be a huge, a huge thing set up, and I'm going to have
You're going to find there's another game night at my house that night.
Well, no, what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to call up people. I'm going to have to tell people specifically, like Jennifer and Trey and some people. I'm going to say, okay, game night for you starts at 9. Game night for everybody who wants to starts at 8, right? You know, I think that's a fair way to do that. So we played a lot of that. I played Transcontinental this week. Really liked it. Arboretum mentioned that last week.
Love Arboretum.
Yeah, I mentioned it last week, and I thought, you know what? That's a game that I should bring out and play and try with the family. It's a mean game, though. It's gorgeous looking. It's beautiful, but it's also really, really mean. And
it is very mean, and it is not friendly to noobs.
Yes. But we played a 3-player of that with my wife and my son, and we liked it. And played a little Everdell, and of course, Hallertau, but we'll talk about that later. Shall we get into the news?
Let's do it.
Good evening, Mr. Mr. Norfolk, South American. All the ships and clippers at sea. Let's go to press. News.
I'll take the first piece of news. The first piece of news is there is a new game from Portal Games and Ignacy Trzewiczek. It is called Dune House Secrets. Basically, it's detective in the Dune universe. This could
Is detective the one you like, or is the other one the one?
No,
you
detective is the one I like very much.
Okay. What was it? See, there's 2 of them that are like basically the same thing.
No, well, Chronicles of Crime is the other one that you're thinking of, but no, I don't think they're that similar.
The detective is the one that you guys like more.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Because it's kind of stripped down. Chronicles of Crime is the thing where you can lift your phone up and turn around, and it's kind of got an AR thing where you're looking around a room and seeing clues, which is awesome. It's gimmicky, but it's awesome. But the mysteries themselves aren't that great. What makes detective so good is that they're based on actual crimes. So you
really use the internet to solve them.
Yeah, you do. You at some points you're gonna have to go on their. They have a proprietary internet there where you can look up stuff in their database. You can, send DNA to the lab and it'll come back for you and things like that. And there are also some things where, in one case, for instance, I'm not spoiling much, or I don't think I'm spoiling anything really. At one point, they'll say something about the moon landing or the Apollo 13 or something along those lines. And you go on the internet and Google and find out what night that happened.
Right.
Because that fits into your timeline and you put together a timeline.
Yeah, that's fun.
It is.
What are we going to be like mentats here, trying to solve like Duke Leto's murder or something?
I mean, it says you are rebels who must solve a series of challenging missions with a finite amount of time and resources. Rebels. I'm not sure what.
Are they sure they got Dune here? No.
I know. Okay. So either this is going to be my two of my favorite things in the whole wide world put together, and it's amazing. Right? Is it going to be two great tastes that taste great together, or is this going to be a misfire? I will say that the House Secrets is going to come with only 3 big adventures and an introductory prologue mission, so not a lot of gameplay for it. Mm-hmm. I will say that Ignacy Trzewiczek is a great designer. I mean, really one of the best up and coming designers of the last 3 or 4 years.
Up and coming? He's been around forever.
Has he been really? I mean,
he owns Portal Games.
Yeah, but up and coming for me, it may be different than up and coming for you. If he hadn't designed a game, if he's only designed a game in the 2010s, that's up and coming for me.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, he started. Yeah, I think like Robinson Crusoe was probably one of his first. That was like 2012 or something like that.
2013, something.
Pret-a-Porter also. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So
he's been around a while.
Yeah, last 10 years, as to me, is still up and coming. But I understand what you're saying. Absolutely. This is definitely one to keep an eye out on. I'm really going to be looking forward to hearing some early reviews of it, because Dune could work really well in this kind of environment, right? You could tell stories in the Dune universe, because Dune is entirely treachery and betrayal and secrets and lies and traitors and all that sort of stuff, and that seems to fit really, really well within the idea of this. It's just they're going to be naturally crafting their own story. And one of the great things about Detective was they didn't have to entirely craft their own story because they were taking their clues and their situations from actual crimes, and that was what made it so good. Now that they have to somewhat from whole cloth weave a new story, that often is where game designers get into a little bit of difficulty because it's actually a narrative, it's actually a writing skill. More than it is
that's a deal breaker for me because the minute I'm watching somebody do what I do for a living, I can't relax and I'm back in work mode. So
this is exactly my point. And we also we're hard judges for our own field of endeavor, right? I mean, it's very rare.
Yeah, even if I'm not trying to judge it, I'm noticing if things are good or bad, I'm rewriting in my head, and I'm all of a sudden not doing the opposite of writing, which is why I play board games.
And there's a whole bunch of us that feel that way.
But some people love it.
So many of us in our particular group are writers, right? And we'll be like, oh God, I wish they didn't do it that way. I wish that you can't help but be an editor a little bit and say, yeah, I wish they had done that a slightly different way. Which one of the reasons that you need to play Detective, because one of the reasons I love it so much is it was one of the first games that I played where I didn't have any complaints about the writing, and I didn't because these are based on actual crimes and actual cases, and the clues that you're uncovering and the way you're solving the crimes are the way it actually happened, and that's interesting.
Right. Yeah, I'd give it a whirl.
All right, what's the next piece we got?
Next up, we got a new edition of Carpe Diem. This is a Stefan Feld game that I didn't play. I came very close to playing it and buying it because it was very well reviewed by Rado and a couple other people. But it just didn't look quite heavy enough for me to purchase. I sort of have the Jennifer rule of being very careful with anything below a 3. Just because it's just not my jam usually.
I haven't played it either.
Yeah, go ahead.
I haven't played it either, but from what I've heard from people that like this, Stefan Feld had this period when he could do no wrong, and then he had kind of a fallow field period where he was still putting out designs, but people weren't just crazy about them anymore. And now he's having somewhat of a resurgence, right? His games are starting to be really sought after, and he's got his groove back.
Bonfire is pretty great.
Yeah, exactly. My understanding is that Carpe Diem was the beginning of the return of Stefan Feld. People were like, "Oh wow, have you tried the Stefan Feld?" And people were like, "Really, Stefan Feld?" And they were like, "No, Carpe Diem really is quite good. You should try it. You should definitely."
Well, it was wildly ugly, and that's coming from someone who doesn't really care much about it. And no disrespect to the artist at all. It just it didn't look like the art budget was up to the snuff of modern Euros.
Yep.
Not that the artist wasn't up to the talent level necessary. It's just the cardboard was thin and things were a little washed out, and the printing, it just didn't seem up to snuff. And it seems that they would agree with me because they have released a brand new version with very striking box art and new components and new artwork. I think they realized the game was better than the art package that it was afforded. And so they're trying again.
Not bad.
Yeah. Definitely. It should be, I think, the beginning of February is when it's coming to America. I think it's already been released in Canada.
Yeah, February 5th should be the date that you can get it here in the States. And
I think it's an Amazon date, so, grain of salt, but check it out.
Of course. Next up, Canvas. Canvas is a 2021 release that is coming out and getting a lot of buzz. Okay, this is a light game. Let's get that out of the bat. Right now, its weight is 1.75, but I'm bringing it up for a reason, and that is that, first of all, it is a game about art. And I love that it's one of those, when Wingspan came out, I'm like, oh my God, why hasn't anybody done a game with this theme, right? It's perfect. It was just amazing and wonderful and really took a good game and took it to a next level because it took a subject matter that wasn't dealt with a lot. And in Canvas, you are artistically layering paintings to create a masterpiece, right? And you're in an art competition. The other cool thing about it is, first of all, it's got these little palettes and it's got these little easels, which remind me actually of the easel that's in Gallerist.
Gallerist, yeah.
But everybody has their own. And the really cool thing about it is the way you make the art is...
That is pretty cool.
Mystic Veil, I think, was one of the first games to do this, where you have clear cards that go into a sleeve. And each card adds an element to it. So by putting multiple cards in that sleeve, you are creating something bigger, right? In Mystic Vale, I'm adding a special bonus to this character, or I'm adding a location and all sorts of stuff that you could do in this. In this case, you're literally creating the work of art by adding foreground and background elements and color and.
All right, that's cool. That's actually the best use I've seen of the transparent sort of card building thing. That's interesting. And actually, it has that Agricola feel at the end of like, even if you lost or something, you made something beautiful.
I like my art, exactly, the tangibility factor, as I call it. I'm always on the lookout for something that is a tangibly great game, right? Tangibility. If the gameplay is good enough, and by the way, this is supposed to be about a 30-minute game. This might be one of those real gems for casual gamers. This might be something that you could get the family to play.
I'm always looking for a game I could play with my mom too, and she's a visual artist, and I think she would enjoy that aspect of it.
Very well could be. So keep an eye out. And Rado did a review of it and loved it. I can't tell when I hear a Rado review what I'm going to think of it. There's a disconnect there.
Yeah, of course.
But I would love to check this out, and I'm looking forward to knowing more about Canvas.
Yeah, I'll check it out. That's very cool. Very cool. Wouldn't have been on my radar otherwise. In some good news that came off some bad news, Ion Game Design, which is for the most part the home of Phil Eklund Games, had announced last week that I'll just catch you up briefly. Phil Eklund is a person who says a lot of things that are scientifically contentious and at worst racist, and he made some non-factual statements about COVID, or at least was entering into the foray of a conversation about COVID that is not useful at all on the internet.
Matt, may I jump in for just a quick sec? I've
Go
decided in 2021 that I'm not going to pussyfoot around the word lie anymore. He is spouting lies, and I'm going to start saying that when I feel that it is absolutely that.
Yeah, they are lies to me. They are not lies to him. I don't think he's. I think there are people who say things they know are false in order to deceive you, and then there are people who have allowed themselves to be deceived and are imparting non-facts as truth. I would imagine he's not aware he's lying, and for some reason just trying to, like, I don't know.
Yeah, I agree.
But regardless, he said some nonsense. People got mad, as they should have, when you make nonsense statements on the internet, which is a choice always to do that, and consequences may follow. And that's not anything to do with freedom of speech. And Ion Games decided that from now on, they would start giving the opposite scientific opinion, or the scientific opinion, to his footnotes or essays in his essays. And people were like, that's absurd. We don't need, if that'd be like if somebody made a flat earth statement, we don't need to actually prove the earth is round. We can just ignore them. Yes. And people were a little up in arms about that. And so they finally just made the decision we're just not going to have his footnotes and essays in anymore. His, as they called them, I think, non-factual footnotes. They're not just going to lose all footnotes from Phil Eklund, but they will no longer be publishing his essays or non-factual footnotes in their games from now on. Which just seems, it's just, if he wants to publish stuff like that, do it yourself.
Yeah, and the issue being, of course, that as many people have said, that when creationists always want to debate, right? And scientists eventually realized, by debating, we're giving status to their argument that it hasn't earned, right? Yeah. That you're legitimizing something that doesn't deserve that level of legitimacy. And so I'm really happy that Ion Games did this. Yeah,
agreed. I'll jump ahead to one news story here because it's slightly attached to it as well. So in further disturbing news, Fun Again Games, which is one of the larger Kickstarter distributors, as well as a game shop in and of themselves, had, past tense, a CEO or president named Jeff DeBoer, who made some genuinely disgusting comments on a Facebook thread defending Phil Eklund to Jessica Cassidy, who is a marketing director, designer, host, just an important person in our hobby. You probably recognize her from many heavy cardboard videos, but just absolutely misogynistic, disgusting things under the cowardly, attempt at a joke. And I'm glad it was pointed out because it was gross. It was super gross. And he has stepped down, aka I'm imagining fired, but that's me imagining, not something they've said, from Fun Again Games. We do not revel in somebody losing their job here in any way, shape, or form. But if you had seen these comments, you would not buy from this company anymore. And they realized that was going to happen and decided that they would like to continue as a company. And to do that, it would need to be without him.
Yeah. So here's the thing, though. He was not fired because you can't fire the person who owns the company. He is the owner of Fun Again Games. So he has been replaced by his management team. But for me personally, listen, it's easy for me to say because I don't buy from Fun Again Games. I mean, it's been a long time since I have.
Well, you may not know you do because a lot of the Kickstarters that you may back are just distributed by them. They're massive in the Kickstarter world.
Yeah, that is true. That is true. But I will do my best to avoid Fun Again Games. I appreciate the fact that they are changing their CEO and they're changing they're taking the keys to Twitter away and so on and so forth. I think that's social media accounts, client relations, management and operations. I'm glad that they're changing that, but the man who is profiting from this is still that same person. Right, he is still the owner of the company. So
it looks like the I think they said the 25 employees who work there, they all came together and said we do not stand by this anymore, but we still rely on our jobs and would like to keep working. And this person does not represent us in any way, shape, or form. And so I don't know. It seems like they took the right steps there.
100%. I'm not saying they haven't. All I'm saying is that a similar thing happened with CrossFit. Right, earlier this year, there was a problem with CrossFit, and the owner and CEO of CrossFit stepped down, and that didn't end the problem because people realized that he was still the one raking in the money for this, and eventually he had to sell his a stake in the company so that the company could continue, and that's what they did in that situation. I'm not telling anybody what to do by any stretch of the imagination. I definitely feel for the full-time employees of Fun Again Games. These people do not deserve any of the problems that have been created by this. That is for sure. So that's all I got to say about that.
We can jump back to the news we skipped there. You want to do this one?
Yeah, sure. Sagrada Legacy. We don't know much about it. All we know is I love Sagrada as a game. I have no idea what a legacy element to what is a fairly abstract glass window making game would be. But I'm always intrigued to hear. I will say that their expansions for Sagrada have been pretty good. I really quite like them. So Floodgate Games has announced that at Gen Con 2021, which is good. That means this summer, if it even happens, there's going to be a new edition or expansion for Sagrada called Sagrada Legacy. I'm looking forward to that. I'll also say we have news for people who are fans of Russian railroads. Alfred, are you listening? That dude is playing that game like 10 times a day, every day. No, that's an exaggeration, but he's playing it every day, pretty much. It's amazing. It's amazing. He's so good at it now. So the German publisher Higspiel has stated that Ultimate Railroads, which is a Russian Railroads big box collection, I don't know, after seeing Anachrony, I don't think we can call anything else big box anymore, but they are releasing a new big box collection that is going to include Russian railroads, German railroads, probably the American railroads, small variants, and the new Asian railroads expansion, as well as a solo variant, and that should be coming out in August 2021. Looking forward to that.
Yeah.
I think those games are great.
Yeah, it's funny that Alfred has like gone very deep in the base game, but like I don't know if I'd ever play the base game again. Like I mean it's great, but I felt like German Railroads kind of replaced it. I really liked German Railroads a lot more.
The addition of coal in German Railroads, I thought, did make it a much more interesting experience. And listen, the games are still multiplayer solitaire, which is a problem for me. But yeah, I agree with you. German Railroads was superior for me, for sure.
Yeah. And now there's a couple more. I mean, I own American Railroads. I've never even played it.
Yeah, I haven't either, actually. Own it, haven't played it.
Crazy.
Get that to the table.
All right, that's the news.
That is the news. Why don't we get to some games on the brain? Maddie, what's on your brain?
Just Agricola, really. If I had to say where I'm spending most of my time in my obsession with Agricola, it would not be playing it, because I don't have much time for that. But it would be in watching some streams. There are two fantastic Agricola streamers on Twitch. Twitch, what's that in the board gaming world? Well, on Twitch, Lumen Sperling, who we've had on the podcast before, who's one of the top Agricola players, a former champion, or I mean, I don't know if maybe he's still a current champion. I don't know how it works. But Lumen_S on Twitch streams 3 or 4 times a week. He has a schedule up. He does it at the same time every day. It's fantastic. And then his video tape as well. Then there is also Play_Agricola, which streams like daily playing games. And these are high level Agricola players. And I feel like that's actually how I'm improving at Agricola, is watching very high level players, go through a draft, then play a game. I probably learn more doing that than I would playing. But yeah, I've been at night, instead of reading a book, which I should probably be doing, just watching videos that were recorded earlier that day from Agricola streamers, and it's been very fun. So if you didn't even know, Agricola gets streamed daily by 2 very great Agricola players, check them out on Twitch, and then they also will occasionally post some of their better games on YouTube as well.
Nice. For me, what's on my brain right now is The King is Dead. The King is Dead has a second edition that came out in 2020. And it's kind of a really brilliant, simple game. It's very easy. The king is dead. The kingdom is divided.
I bought it this week, and I forgot to mention that I played it online with Paul and Ben.
Oh, there you go. It was the game of the year for
no pun included. One of their 2, yeah.
One of their 2, and here's what I'm gonna talk about. No pun included. I love No Pun Included. One of the things I love about them is that their game of the year is never what anybody else is picked. Right? They pick things like Now Boarding, the great Tim Fowers game that you wouldn't have even thought of, and then you go and play, and you're like, "Wow, I'm not sure this would be my game of the year, but it's amazing. It's crazy good." They had Sidereal Confluence, right? Was one of their games of the year. Never would have been my game of the year for that year, but now that I've played it, dude, totally would have been in my top 10 for that particular year. I like the way that they're willing to turn over a whole bunch of stones and find these gems and give that game of the year title to something that people might not be thinking about. I think that's a really great way to go about it. And The King is Dead what did you think? What did you think, Matt, playing it?
I think it's really cool. I instantly read the rules and texted Paul, and I said, "Get on TTS right now. I have a Paul game for you."
Yeah. Right, complete Paul game. Except that its ideal playing might be without Paul, because he's just going to break it. He's just going to break it. It's breakable.
He didn't. He lost to me in a learning game. I won't take many. I won't feel so good about a learning game victory, but it's really cool. It's mean. Yeah. And it's the kind of game that you could bring to a restaurant and play. And I mean, it's literally a 20-minute game, very small table space it takes, and it's
Very
it's a
few pieces.
mean
Yeah.
little cool. It's you can tell that it influenced Cole Wehrle's Pax Pamir, which the designer says it did. It's actually the game that Cole Wehrle says made him want to be a game designer.
Yeah. So check it out. You guys should check that out.
It's cool. It's definitely Game of Thrones intrigue only, not combat. And it definitely has that feel of you're all Littlefinger doing awful things behind the scenes and trying to head fake constantly.
It's kind of all about the bluff, the double bluff, and the stab. That's really what the game is at its heart. But I love and collect games that are very simple and pure and elegant. And this is
interestingly
absolutely
really only a 3-player game. I've heard the 4-player game is a team game and not worth playing, and at 2 it's a little bit of maybe a zero-sum game.
Take that
I
back
think
and
it's
forth. Yeah.
I think but I think it's a very solid 3-player filler.
So there you go. That was what was on my brain. Let's get to our review. We're going to be talking about Hallertau. The designer is Uwe Rosenberg. The artists are Lucas Sigmund and the great Clemens Franz. And the publisher is Lookout Games. Plays 1 to 4 players. The weight is currently at around 3.3. I think that's probably around right? Yeah. And plays between 50 and 140 minutes. That's a very wide...
Well, that's 50
with the 1 player
as a solo game, which is actually a little long. I think I can crank it down about 30 minutes, and I've done many at 30.
And we've definitely played 4 players in less than 140 minutes. So I think these times are pretty dead on. They're not.
It's not a long game.
No, it is not a long game.
It's not.
Tell us what the game's about.
If you believe me, Uwe Rosenberg has made a farming game.
What?
I know.
What?
It's crazy, but he has gone ahead and made a farming game. Now, what is amazing to me is not that Uwe Rosenberg has made another farming game. It's that Uwe Rosenberg keeps finding new ways to make farming games. It's like, I mean, it's actually crazy that he's still finding new ways to make, like, this doesn't necessarily feel like any other farming game he's made, and yet it is absolutely a farming game.
But Matthew, is it bucolic?
Yeah. So I mean, what's funny is like Hallertau is famous for being the hops producing region of Germany, but you're not making beer in this game. And then hops is only one of 4 or 5 things you're making in this game.
Only 5.
But yeah, this is set in 1850, and we're all competing villages in the Hallertau region. And this isn't even a farming simulation game. This is a village building game. I guess that's the theme. We all have competing villages, and we want to see who's the most successful village. And all of our various shops in our village or industries in our village are to be maximized in their efficiency, and fed all of the necessary goods in order to become the best versions of themselves so that we can have the best village. That's the theme.
Yeah, that sounds good. It sounds good. So it has the main board is largely a worker placement space. It's a grid system which has a fixed. They're not changeable. They're fixed locations that you can go to. The difference here being that in a lot of his older designs, one person goes there and that's it. No one else can go there. Now they have sort of a staggered system where the first person to go to a space requires only 1 worker to activate that space. The second person requires 2, and the third person requires 3 workers, which
Tom,
gets to be very pricey. Yes,
he made a new worker placement game. But like, have you seen? I've never seen this before. Have you seen this worker placement mechanic?
Yeah, where you have to pay more for another person to go there. I believe so. I'm having a tough time coming up with it, but I believe that it has happened. But
basically, every space can be gone to 3 times. But every time you go there, it gets twice as expensive to go there, basically. Like the first time you go there, it costs 1 worker. Second time costs 2. Third time costs 3. Then it's blocked.
Correct.
And then not every section is going to empty out every round. Only the top row is going to empty out every round. So if only one person goes to a place, it'll be free the next round. But if it's totally full the next round, then the only spot available that next round is going to cost 3 workers.
And
so only the
so
top level gets reset.
Precisely right. And just so you don't think that you can just pre-plan your moves, there's also a little mechanism whereby certain other sections will be filled in at random by flipping over a card and filling those sections in. So you
only
never
if you're
know.
Playing in less than 4 players. Yeah.
Correct. Right. If you're playing less than 4 players, it will fill in certain other areas to make it even harder.
But I mean, that to me, like first time I learned it, I was like, God damn, he came up with a new worker, not only a new farming game, but a new worker placement mechanic. Like, and it feels fresh. It feels it's not Agricola where it's like, okay, you went to family growth, I can't go there. It's okay, you went to the sheep space, I need sheep. Wow, I did not expect to have to pay 3 for sheep this round. That's really gonna put me in a bind.
Well, yeah, I mean, he's gone from Agricola, which is one person goes there, no one else can go there this turn. He then went to Le Havre, where one person goes there, and it may be 5 or 6 turns before that person moves off of that space and somebody else can go there.
Yeah.
So he's getting harder and harder. And then he started going easier and easier, where we have games like Feast for Odin, where...
Has 700,000 worker placement spots.
Exactly. Still one per thing, but there are so many other choices.
Many, yeah.
And there are also spaces where you can mimic another space, right?
What's interesting, though, is this one starts out. I feel like this actually goes... It ranges between Agricola and Feast for Odin. It starts out as Feast for Odin. Mm-hmm. You can do anything you want. But by the 5th or 6th round, it's Agricola. You know, everything's pretty full.
Yeah, I agree with that. Though I will say that I think Feast for Odin does that too, in the fact that the later on you get in the game, the more people tend to be competing over the exact same thing. Exactly. Yeah. And the person picking the action that imitates an action that's already been taken is generally gone almost immediately. So it does happen that a little bit.
They took that out in Norwegians. There is no imitate action anymore.
That's right. I forgot about that. But I think Hallertau does a very good job of that. That early in the game, you can do anything you want to do. It's just going to cost a more for you to do it than the other person, and that's going to be a little bit painful. And by the end of the game, it really is action denial. It starts to get to
100%.
Absolutely.
And another cool mechanism that he added there is there are 4 spaces around the board where you take cards. So there's 4 decks of cards in the game. 2 of them are variable per the game. There's 4 decks for 2 of the spots that you can switch up every game. 2 of them are always the exact same deck. And there are only 2 worker placement spots to go to each deck to draw a card from that deck. But every time you go to one of those spots, you steal the first player marker. So this isn't one of those worker placement games where you decide if you're taking start player. You don't know if you're going to get start player. If you go to take a card, you get start player right now. But unless you're the last person to take a card this round from any of the 4 decks, you're not first player.
Oh, brutal.
Love that.
Brutal.
Very fun. Because you want those cards early because they'll decide what you're going to need to do, because most of them are going to give you stuff by spending stuff. So you want to have the stuff to spend so you can get the cards. Yeah. But you want to go last so that you're first player next turn, because that's really important as well.
Right, which is it's reminiscent of Marco Polo, Voyages of Marco Polo, in which the last person to move becomes the start player for the next round. I think that's a good mechanism, because you want to do certain things, and there becomes a trade-off on how to get turn order.
Yeah, it self-balances nicely.
Yeah, I will say turn order doesn't seem to be that important earlier in the game. The later in the game you get,
it depends what you're competing for.
Much more important.
Totally. If lots of people are going sheep, then it can really matter.
Sure, that's true. That's true too. Guess what? You have sheep, and those sheep make milk and breed and do things. And do you like cards? Guess what? Like Maddie said, there are all sorts of cards, and they have combos, and some of them you hold for endgame scoring, and some of them you play early on so you can get benefits and get more cards. And gosh, it seems as though virtually everything you want in an Uwe Rosenberg is here.
Well, and let's talk about there's 2 elements of this game. Like, we've talked about the worker placement element, but that's not really the game.
No.
The game
It's not the game, but it's not
not the game, but the cards are as much as of the game, and your community center is as much of the game. There are really three sections of the game that are all equally important in terms of being able to play the game. Like, you have to learn all three of them.
Or are they?
Well, in terms of winning the game, that's different. I said playing the game.
Fair enough. Which would you like to talk to about next? Would you like to talk about the community center?
Let's talk about the community center so people understand what the heck the point of the game is. And then we'll talk about the cards, which is maybe the most important part of how you're going to do the community center.
All right. So the community center is your own personal player mat. And there's a little window in it. Sweet little place with a little window in it. And the window tells you how many workers you have. It also has these, is it 5 rows on the side? 5, 6?
There are 8 columns and 5 rows.
5 rows. I thought it was so. Okay, so there are 5 rows on the side, and basically each one of those rows requires something different. Some will need, for instance, wheat. Some will need either meat or milk. And some of them have a variety of things that they will take for that. But you are going to have to provide those sorts of things to expand your house. And when you expand your house, by paying those things, you're able to shift your house to the right, and you're making it bigger. When you make it bigger, guess what? That window that tells you how many workers you're going to have for the next round moves over to the next number, and it gets bigger. And
just
and bigger,
from a visual standpoint, that's cool.
Yeah,
it's fun to move. You're physically moving a piece of cardboard, and the window is changing the number, and that's a neat little physicality for people who've only played it on TTS. But you can still imagine that it's cool.
And it'll keep moving until you get to 12 workers, and then once you get past 12 workers, unfortunately, you will not get any more workers. But Uwe Rosenberg has your back. He tells you that, well, guess what? Instead of getting workers once you reach the 12-worker limit, you're going to start getting victory points. And to say that these victory points are significant is a severe understatement. I mean,
they're necessary.
It's like, what is it, 1836, 50 something, somewhere around there? It is huge.
18 to 70, yeah.
Yeah. In 4 moves, it goes from 18 to 70. That is a huge amount of points being able to do that. But the problem is that every time you move it, the price goes up. Each round, the price of moving your community center moves up. It goes from 1 good of any of these types to 2, and then to 3. But when you get to the 3, all of a sudden there are deals where if you give 1 and 1 of the 2 different types, then you only need 2 of those goods, and so on and so forth. Right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, it gets more expensive as the rounds go on, but it also has potential for combos that can cheapen it if you diversify.
And then there is the matter of those darn little rocks and boulders that are in the way.
Yes, this limits you from just flying ahead on one track on round 1.
Yeah, you gotta clear this stuff out, and in order to clear this stuff out, you gotta get tools, and tools are really annoying in the beginning of the game because virtually the only way to get tools is to use one of your precious workers, and you don't have a lot in the beginning of the game.
Throw it away.
Throw it away. You don't throw it away. You were going to retain it because you're going to get a full set of workers next round, but throw it away and grab a tool.
For this round. Yeah.
Luckily, tools do not go away until the very end of the game, until the last round of the game. So any tools you use this round are replenished and will be available to you next round as well. That's cool.
Yep. Super cool. Super cool.
So where are we at on this game? What are your thoughts, Matt?
Well, let's talk about the cards, because when I first played this game, my first thought was cards. This is all about the cards, and it is in terms of your strategy. Mm-hmm. So like I said, there are 4 decks, and Uwe does this thing where he goes, I could probably suck another $10 out of you every year for the next couple of years selling you expansions, or I'll just throw them all in this box and move on to something else. And that's what he does. He's done it with Newsford. He did it with, although he is still selling some expansions for that, but these games come with so much in the box. I mean, there are so many occupations and feasts for Odin that I've played that game, 50 times, and I still sometimes see ones I haven't seen. Like, he gives you so much in the box.
Yeah, I was like, wait, there's a haberdasher?
Yeah, I mean, this is like his. I think that this is absurd. I mean, there are 4 decks. 2 of them are always the same. Those are the bonus decks and the victory point decks. And it's good that those are always the same because the better you get at this game, the more you can start relying on basically what's in there. Now, obviously, you're not going to draw that many of those cards, but you'll know what can score. You'll know what kind of things are in that deck. You'll know pretty much what, and if you really start knowing the game, you'll see what other players have played, and you can actually start sort of guessing your odds of getting the cards you want out of those decks. The other decks, though, you pick one of 4. So there's the Gateway deck, which are basic cards. These are cards that are going to get your engine going. And what this deck is known for is you'll never have to spend anything to get things. You just have to have it. So, for example, I have a card in my hand that says, as soon as I have 4 clay, I can play this card and get 1 hops. Awesome. Don't have to spend the clay, just have to have it. And that gets me to my next point. As I just said, as soon as I have it, I play the card. You can play cards at any point in this game, on other people's turns, in the middle of a turn, interrupting an action to play a card to finish that action. This is a, if you think you can do it game.
And oftentimes you will be doing it on other people's turns because the thing that a person has done fulfills the objective you need to be able to flip your card. Right?
Exactly. And my first thought was like, oh boy, is there going to be all these like timing things? Like we are in phase F9-4 when, I mean, like, no,
yeah.
It really doesn't matter because these cards are not interactive. There's never going to be a card that if you play this before another player plays, there's none, you don't have to worry about like slamming it down like Uno or something. Like it doesn't matter.
Right.
You can play it at any time and it's going to be fine. But it's important to know that you can't play it at any time. So the Gateway deck are going to be all things that get your engine going. It's going to give you a little direction at the start of the game. Then there's the farm cards, of which there are 4 decks, just like there are 4 decks for the Gateway. You pick one every game. The Gateway ones sort of just go from like beginner to basic to advanced to expert. They just get a little more complicated. The Farmyard decks sort of have a little bit of a theming in them. There's the Sheep deck, the Hops deck. And when I say a little bit of theming, I mean like they're like 5% more towards the name of the deck. There's a couple more cards for Hops in the Hops deck. There's a couple more cards for Sheep in the Sheep deck. And these decks are about 30 cards each. And the Farmer deck is usually going to give you much better rewards than the Gateway deck, but you're often going to have to spend goods instead of just having some. These are your mid-game cards. Bonus cards are income. I don't know why they're not called income. Seems to be, I think that's just a mistake. They should change the name to income because that's all they are. Yeah. You play these cards and they give you income for the rest of the game. And so a lot of the Gateway and Farm cards, when you play them, give you free draws of the bonus deck, which is not just important, but necessary. You really only want to focus on cards that are giving you card draw because that's free actions.
Any card that you get that has no card draw just throws you entirely off tempo. You're basically going to have to use actions to get cards that you should have had anyway. It's
right. You save those cards for later.
Yeah, exactly.
If at all. So yeah, then you've got your VP, which are endgame cards. These are at some point before the end of the game, spend 10 clay to get 10 points. You're not going to want to do that at the beginning of the game because you really need that clay. You could just get 10 clay, spend it, get 10 points, but you probably lost by doing that because you needed that clay for other things. So you have these VP cards, which are going to give you long-term goals. At the beginning of the game, you draw 4 Gateway cards and 1 VP card. So those Gateways will start your engine off, get your little engine moving, hopefully draw you some income cards, and your VP will give you 1 long-term goal. Other than that, though, you're on your own. And so I've had games where I play 20 cards. I've had games where I play 40 cards. I mean, sometimes these cards chain wildly. Now, here's the thing, though. There's not a huge difference in my scores between the times I play 20 cards and 40 cards.
I agree. I was worried about that in my first play because I said, I don't have a lot of synergy here in these cards. And I know oftentimes that's the kiss of death. I ended up winning the game because I focused on expanding my community center at the and sort of letting the cards come to me and happen. When I had an extra guy to grab turn order, I would use that to get a card and see if that would pay off. But I played a relatively card light game, which
yeah. Let's get into the strategy. Let's get into I'm not going to call it the problem with this game, but the conversation around this game.
Yes.
Is this game just a game about getting 70 points on your community center?
Maybe.
Is this a game where you can win with 18 or 34 points in a community center?
No.
I would say absolutely not. I do not think you can be competitive and ignore your community center. Well, of course, you can never ignore a worker placement game that's going to give you victory points.
Right.
I mean, sorry, that's going to give you workers, right? So of course you have to get to 12 workers. Duh. But do you have to keep moving? There's zero part of me that thinks that you don't.
Yeah.
Now,
Uwe Rosenberg, right? Can you play Agricola without doing family growth? Probably not. No, not really. Right. Can you play Le Havre without going for steel? Probably not. Right? These are things that, to some extent, you have to at least be going for in order to make it expensive for the other people that are doing that. At the very least, you're going to need to do that.
And in fact, this has led me to go through every Uwe game to ask myself if there's a game wherein there isn't a necessary strategy, and there isn't one. Every game he made, there is you can't win at the Gates of Loyang if you're not moving up that victory point track every round, right? I mean, like you can't win Newsford if you're ignoring the sea buildings. You can't win Feast for Odin if you're ignoring emigration.
Yep.
They all have a thing that you just can't be competitive if you're going to ignore it.
But here's the issue. And the issue is this, is that when I'm playing Agricola, yes, I have to do family growth. But the amount of time and energy spent toward doing that, even though I have to do that, is still 10% of my game. 90% of it is the other things that I'm doing while, I couldn't do family growth this time because that person took it. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. I'm going to do those other sorts of things. In Le Havre, there's tons of other things that I'm doing the whole time. So even though getting to steel is super important, it's probably only 25, 30% of the game is dedicated toward that one thing, and the rest of it is doing all of the other things that you do.
And there are many different routes to that.
Precisely.
As well.
Precisely. In this game, though, in Hallertau, it does feel like so much of my game is getting the things necessary to push that darn community center to the right. And as the game progresses, it's more and more of my resources, which means more and more of my actions are all dedicated toward this one thing. Now, it's a little bit of exaggeration to say that because you're doing card plays. There's a lot of other things that are going on in the game. Right. But in terms of that, 10% of your game is spent doing the thing you have to do. 20% of your game is spent doing the thing. I feel in this game, 60% of my game is doing the thing that I have to do in the game, and I'm not sure I love that.
Yeah, and look, can you win? Can you beat somebody at this game without moving, without getting into the victory and community center? Of course. I'm not just saying like, I'm talking competitive play. I'm talking if we're going to look at this as a tournament level game or something. Of course, this game, you can just have fun and enjoy it. And I'm sure that you could have a very enjoyable game of this and a very bucolic, fun night with a glass of wine playing this where you each just explore the space and you'd have a fantastic time. And it could even feel like a fun competitive thing. But I'm just looking at it from like a tournament level strategy thing here. Sure. Now, yes, the game is moving the community center, but I don't believe you have to get to 70 to be competitive. I think it's 50 or 70, and I think there is wiggle room there for who does better with victory point cards. Then the question becomes, is that card draw luck? And
yes, that's another question. Yep.
Right. So obviously, the earlier you go to the victory point deck, the better, because the more time you'll have to plan for it. But you'll often just jump in there with one of your last cubes. And I would hate to think this game could come down to the player who just happens to grab the right card for the thing they had a lot of. And I think in a highly competitive game, I think it kind of could. Because I think in a highly competitive game, everybody has their path to 70. Yeah. People know how to do it. The people who don't need 70, who instead are, and in fact, it's funny because we say 70 in the window, but you can have 50 in the window and still have
there are other
close
points
to
on
70 on your board by moving buildings past things, right? So
there are other victory points that are on the board.
So if you've got 50 in the window, you've probably got another 9 or 12 potentially that you could have. So you could still be in the 60s on there.
But the problem,
and then it's really going to come down to points on bonus cards, which are not nothing. Those can be 20 points because most of the bonus cards are worth victory points as well. And then it's going to come down to how many victory point cards you've done. So while all the scores are in the hundreds, maybe 100 to 150 is a good game. I think at a highly competitive level, it's going to come down to a handful of points usually.
Yeah.
And it's going to come down to potentially who drew better in the victory point deck, I think.
Which is a problem because those victory point cards are generally worth 8 points each or so. And you can whiff. I'm drawing late. I'm hoping to get something good, and I am nowhere near set up to do anything regarding this card.
I don't mind that. I don't mind the whiff. I mind the stumbling into 8 points.
Well, that's what that's the other point. That's the other
whiff.
Well, that's the other point of the whiff is what I'm saying is that you can draw a card, and I already have this, or I'm one action away from doing this. Super easy, done. And that's a little bit. Which, by the way, is a problem that Uwe has tried to work throughout his career in dealing with cards and card draw and the randomness of card draw, right? In Agricola, the majority of the cards that you have in the game you get right at the start of the game, right? Or all of them, right?
Yeah.
And so on and so forth. So these games in which you can get late card draws that could make a big difference. That's actually, if we want to talk about what is not like his games, that's not really like his games too much, right? That's a bit of a difference.
I would like. I'll talk about my thoughts in a second, but the last point on this is like, I'm wildly curious. I would love nothing more than to watch the 4 best Hallertau players in the world play this. People who memorized each deck, who have put it. I'd really be curious because it's possible we're wrong. It is possible
Absolutely.
that with a ton of experience with this game, we're just dead wrong.
Sure.
And in fact, I mean, I doubt it, but what if the community center was actually a trap? And it's all about the car. I don't know. I've played this at every player count. I've probably played it 15 times now, and I've probably played it another 20 times solo. I've played this maybe more than any other game I've played this year, and it didn't even come out till December. I played it a lot. I got obsessed with it.
Maddie,
played it a ton.
Why don't you just get rid of your Agricola obsession and become the world's best Hallertau player? You're probably 50% of the way to being the world's best Hallertau player.
Because I know that the effort is worth it in Agricola, and I don't know it's worth it in Hallertau. But here. So I'm going to jump into my thoughts really quick.
Sure.
I'm not convinced that this is a game that is worth the effort on a competitive level, which is not necessarily where I get all my enjoyment out of games anyway. But with a game like this, I think it might just sort of collect dust if it doesn't. That being said, it's maybe the most fun I've had playing a game all year. And we'll get into our top 3s later on, but the spoiler alert, this is on it somewhere. I just love the turn-to-turn process of this game. I love the lemons out of lemonade, lemonade out of lemons play of a handful of cards. How can I link them? How can I get this chain going? How can I make an engine going? I'm just having so much fun doing that. And then, yes, at many of these games, I've had so much fun playing my cards that I get to the end and realize I lost by a lot of points. But I don't know that I mind that much because I really did have so much fun with the whole process and how am I going to do it? And it makes you feel like I've had games where I'm like, oh, I'm crushing everyone. And I lose by a lot. But the entire game, I felt like I was just destroying. Like, oh, this links into this. I played this card, then this card. Oh my God, Matt, what a genius play! And then and then you look at the end and go, oh, all you guys had to do was just get to 70 and you beat me. Got it. Okay, which isn't necessarily the best feeling at the end, but it doesn't take away the fun that I had throughout the whole game. And I'm just having so much fun with this puzzle. And linking these cards, and that's just maybe a me thing. Like that's what I look for in a game. I like a heavy game with someone hands me a pile of crap and I got to figure out how to turn it into points. I just like that. That's what my brain thrives for in a game. And this game kind of hits that perfectly for me.
And for me, listen, I'm going to ask you a question, Maddie. Do you remember round 3, episode 1? Do you remember when you and I sat down and talked?
I don't remember what I had for breakfast this morning, Tom.
That was when you and I had a debate as to
yes.
as to
I've been thinking about this a lot right now.
Uwe Rosenberg versus Uwe Rosenberg,
board game designer of all time.
Tell me,
and it's not even close.
Okay, so tell me I won. All right, Tom, you won that debate. It took me a year to realize.
No. I won the debate, but your side was right.
No, it took you a year to for my comments to filter into you, to get past the ego and the competition, and to realize, oh my God, he was so right.
I knew you were right. I just was given Vital, and I smoked you at the debate. No, it's not even close. Uwe Rosenberg is my favorite designer of all time. That has been secured this year. It's not even a competition. If you took away every game I owned and just left me with my Uwe games and said that's all I could play for the rest of my life, I'd be fine. I really would.
And I'll put it in slightly different terms here. If this was a game by an unknown designer, I would be probably raving about it.
Yeah, isn't that funny? It'd be like this is absolutely.
Like, holy cow, watch out, guys. This is amazing.
Yeah.
But because it's Uwe Rosenberg, I'm grading on a scale. I have to say, I'm grading on a scale. Because I'm comparing it to his other games. I'm comparing it to the amazing things that he's done in his canon and in his time. And in that sense, and in that sense only, this is good but not great. This is maybe even great but not exceptional. This is a game that I feel like I get a sense, and it's only a sense because I haven't played it as much as you have. I haven't played it a ton yet.
It plays very differently at different player counts. I will say that.
I did notice that,
and I think it's an excellent 2-player game. I think it's up there for his best with 2. But it's really, I don't know. I kind of love it. That's the weird thing, is it's really fun at 4. It's really fun at 3. I don't know. It plays very differently.
At the end of the day, for me, I have a sense that 60% of your time is doing the one thing that you have to do is going to wear on me. And is going to make the game a game that I like and enjoy and admire, but don't really want to play again and again and again. And since it's Uwe, that for me is a deal breaker, because I would, I'll pull out Nusfjord. I'll pull out
pull out Aurora Labora, a masterpiece,
absolutely.
A perfect game.
Unbelievable.
Well, right? Glass Road. You're never gonna have a Glass Road game that isn't fun.
Right.
Ever.
Right. So I think So that's my two cents on it. If you've never played an Uwe Rosenberg, this isn't a bad one to start with. Actually, this is a very easy teach. It's very accessible. But
it's deep too. This is still a 3.5 easy.
Oh yeah,
but
no, it's not.
It's not a tough teach. Like I've taught this game almost to everyone in our group at this point now, and it's like a 20-minute teach. It's not that bad.
So there you go. That is Hallertau. That is a game about. It's an Uwe Rosenberg game about farming. All right,
I really do think it might be his last big box game. He's never said it before, and he's kind of what I've heard said it kind of adamantly here.
All right.
We'll look, I don't think that means he's done designing. I think he's, in fact, probably will see a ton of games from him. I think it's possible he's done with big box 4.0 weight games.
Okay, Uwe, if you're listening,
don't
do it. Don't do it. Okay. Look, you were built for the Russian novel games. Okay.
Yeah. That being said, he has nothing left to prove. I mean, he has 11 masterpieces. Okay.
Fine,
he has 11
games. But doing more patchwork isn't gonna. It's not.
He loves his polyominoes. Leave him alone.
Stop it. No, don't do it. Don't do it.
He's just. Somebody just please buy that man a Switch and Tetris and
absolutely just let him play that, and then design the big stuff, the heavy stuff, the good stuff. Okay, it's like it's like you've done War and Peace, and now you're doing Diary of a Wimpy Kid. Stop it! Come on, come back. Give us the stuff we want to hear. All right. Actually, I really like Patchwork. It's a really good game.
It's really fun. It's great.
It is, but it's not what I
play
was.
Patchwork
It's not. It doesn't sing to me. It doesn't feed my soul the way.
What about Bonanza though? Bonanza's great.
Well, that came before all of those, and that's amazing. That's amazing, and that's a mean game, man.
It is.
We play that as a family, and man, when Uncle Paul comes over and plays with us, it gets brutal. People are just yelling at each other.
Yeah,
absolutely wonderful. Let's move on to a look back at 2020. 2020 was, I think we can safely say, the most unique year of any of our lives. It was. It was a storm of fecal matter virtually from the get, and just kept on going. It disrupted virtually everybody's life. It disrupted our hobby in ways that are going to be felt for a long, long time. Maddie, for you and I, it disrupted our industry in ways we still have no idea how it's going to shake out. It's been amazing in terms of you think you live your life thinking, well, okay, this is pretty much what we're going to have, and here is the best that a year can be, and here's the worst that a year can be, and then something just comes in like King of Tokyo and just stomps all over everything and changes it up. For those of you who are listening and have lost loved ones, we feel your pain, and we are so sorry that has happened. It's absolutely horrible, and it's going to take a long time for us to get past that. But we are doing a board gaming podcast, so we're just going to talk about this one specific aspect of 2020. We're going to talk about board games. We're going to talk about what came out, what didn't come out, what we loved and what we didn't love. Maddie, should I list the games that we reviewed from that are 2020 games? Because doing this podcast when you can't get together and play games was a unique challenge this year.
Yeah, it took us a little while to figure it out, and then we all figured it out. I mean, at this point now, like, we could keep doing this podcast forever without ever seeing each other again. Like, I don't want to, but we got good at it. We figured it out. We made it work, and I've played. I think I can say I've played more board games this year than I've ever played before, because I can just text Ben or Paul or Trey or just say, anybody got some time in the next couple of days? And it's just I've played more games, I think. I've played 0 games in person, but I've played more games in general, I think, than ever.
I've played maybe 50% of my usual. I've played far less games.
And I don't think that's going to change for me, though. I think now that this is on the table, I think I'll be getting more reps of games always in general. And just game night will be, the coup de grace of the week of like, ooh, what game actually deserves to make the table?
Right. Grace. But yes.
What did I say? Coup de grace? You can't say coup de grace?
No, it's Grace, and in French you don't pronounce the very last letter. So
will you just do it in a really offensive French accent for me?
You are thinking of coup d'état.
I am thinking of coup d'état. Okay,
but instead it is
you had to dip into that horrible character to actually convince me I was
what
wrong.
you're looking for is coup de grâce. What?
Yes.
Oui,
okay.
monsieur. Oui.
I appreciate that.
It is nothing, monsieur. It is maybe in so.
Please make it stop.
Maybe in so. I don't think I can. All right. So here are games we reviewed from the 2020 group, or from the 2020 group, sorta. And I will point out the sortas. So On Mars, we reviewed On Mars, which is sorta a 2020 game. It is technically listed on BGG as a 2020 game, even though for a lot of places it came out in 2019, and a bunch of us played it in 2019. We reviewed Blood on the Clock Tower, very unique 2020 release. Food Chain Magnate, the Ketchup Mechanism expansion, sorta. It's a 2019 release, but here in the States, generally didn't come out until 2020. Kalis 1303, Eclipse, Second Dawn of the Galaxy, Oceans, Glenmore 2, which once again is a 2019 release, but it's sort of a 2020 release because lots of places didn't get it until 2020. Smartphone Inc., Kanban EV, Imperial Struggle, Tekenyu, The Cost, Fort, Gloomhaven, Jaws of the Lion, 18 Chesapeake, Marco Polo 2, once again, sorta. It was a 2019 release, but tons of the world didn't get it until 2020. Lost Ruins of Arnak, Beyond the Sun, Anno 1800, Tawan Tinsuyu, and The Crew, sorta. And, of course, Hallertau, as we discussed.
That's a solid year of podcasting.
You know what I
have
mean?
to say.
Given that we did a ton.
Given that I haven't seen you since March. Well, I saw you a couple weeks ago from 400 feet away, but yeah.
Yeah. It's been.
I haven't seen Dimitri's face since I don't know, May, April.
Look, don't. What I don't want to do is I don't want to start talking about the good things about 2020 because that's kind of disrespectful to people that have had a lot of pain this year. So.
I miss you, Dimitri.
Oh, Dimitri, we all miss you, Dimitri. So yeah, that's a pretty good list of games that we reviewed this year, considering basically that's about 50% of our output, and the other 50% were out of necessity going back and reviewing games that we loved and were able to play online. Which I also thought was really good. I did genuinely enjoy being able to dig into some back catalog stuff, things that we don't talk about. I should have mentioned I played Brass again this week. So and
I'm dying to play Brass more. Oh. I think we found our niche as a podcast this year. I think we cover new heavy games, but we also play a lot of classic heavy games. I think I think that's what our audience wants. I mean, and it just happens to be what we want. That's what we do.
Yeah, and on a more
occasionally
we'll
throw in a middleweight or a light game that we think is exceptional.
Sure. And on a more normal year, I think we can continue doing that. I think we were a little caught up in the tyranny of the new, right? We always had to do the new hotness. I would love it if our podcast, every third episode or fourth episode, dipped back and brought out something that, hey, you know what? In all of this cycle of all these new things, here's something you may have forgotten about. Here's an absolute classic. Let's talk about it and talk about why we love it. I would love to do that.
Yeah, I think we've just naturally found that's what we want to do.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's see. Are there any trends from 2020? Are there any things? Oh, I should also say we did also review 3 games that should be coming out in 2021. One we reviewed in January, Oath, Chronicles of Empire and Exile. You and I reviewed that.
Delivering pretty soon.
Yeah, coming soon.
And a completely unrecognizably different game from the one we did. Literally unrecognizable.
Which, if you go back and listen to the episode, I'm pretty happy about. It was one of those things that I'm like, there are some things I really like in this, and there are some things I really don't like in this. So I'm looking forward to it. I thought that the ingenuity in the early prototype that we played was kind of amazing, but it still needed a lot of work. So I'm glad that a lot of work is done, and I can't wait to see what they've come up with. Brick and Mortar also, and the Transcontinental. Those are 3 games that we reviewed that should be coming out probably in 2021. But, after 2020, I no longer plan for the future. I take it day by day. Were there any trends from 2020 that we can identify? For me, I can say that I think that I've noticed that the roll and write seems to be dying, or seems to at least be the wave of roll and writes has diminished.
Slip there.
Has diminished a little bit. I think that there was sort of more of a bifurcation this year. There seemed to be a good amount of heavy games that came out this year, and there seemed to be a lot of calicos this year as well. Sort of a real good separation of a lighter casual fare and heavier stuff, and not quite as much in the middle zone. Maybe that's just my perception, though. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I mean, the 2 of the big games of the year, Lost Ruins of Arnak and Dune Imperium, are all about combining 2 mechanics and it's just worker placement, deck building. I feel like there was a lot of peanut butter and chocolate mix-ups this year of jamming things together and seeing what happens. I don't know. It's hard to tell. I don't see an overall theme this year of like the wingspan year of just like, wow, our hobby just grew and got so much more diverse. And I mean, diversity was definitely a huge topic this year, but I don't
Yeah.
think we've seen the ripples of that yet in design. And I'm sure hoping we see a lot more POC designers in the future and POC publishers, and of course POC people at our tables as well and at conventions. But I think hopefully a lot of the work began this year to see those things happen. So I think we will see trends in that way in the future. But yeah, they're obviously not there yet.
I hope so very much. Yeah, listen, the conversation happened this year. The results of that conversation are going to take a while before they filter in, but very hopeful that they will. What was your biggest surprise of 2020 from a board game standpoint?
Oh, Anno 1800. Absolutely. Not even close. I had zero expectations for a 2020 Martin Wallace video game IP board game. Wasn't even going to look at it. Wasn't even going to watch a video about it. Just assumed, yep, Martin Wallace got to eat. Gotta get a paycheck every once in a while. God bless him. This is going to be, a paycheck. And not going to be anything interesting. And it's, I think you're going to see it on a lot of our top threes for the year. Just absolutely blew my mind.
Because I'm such a Wallaceite, I did not think that it didn't. I love it, by the way. You might see it on my list. We'll see. But it's sort of a return to form in some ways for him.
When was the last time that he did I mean, what's the newest Martin Wallace game you own that's not this one?
Good question. I gotta look into that. I gotta think about that. I'm not sure, but I'm always hopeful that the next Martin Wallace is gonna be the next great Martin Wallace. So there you go. That's for me. For me,
I guess I lost that hope, but now I definitely have it again.
Oh, he's when he's on.
I mean, he
he's
started
amazing.
doing like skirmish mini games and stuff. Like, I don't know what was going on there.
Listen, I played Wildlands. It was okay. It's not my kind of thing. It's mid-weight, but it's but it was really interesting in terms of how he designed it. It was kind of cool.
Okay, I'll take your word
for me. The biggest surprise, I'm gonna list two. First of all, I thought Beyond the Sun was very surprising to me. I thought that a game that took the main part of the game, which is the space exploration and conquest, and turned that into the mini game, and turned the mini game, which is the tech tree, into the main game, I thought was brilliant. I thought it was a really interesting design, and to me, what it said, oh my goodness, how many other games could we design that simply do that simply take the small sideboard and turn that into the main board and make the game around that? I thought that would be really fascinating. But more than anything, my biggest surprise was the cost. Came kind of out of nowhere. And what an amazing, such a fascinating game. A game that was kind of like what you were talking about games that approach games from a social relevance point of view. In this case, about the cost, literal cost of industrialization and capitalism. I have problems with it, but I have no problem with the intent and the design, and so many decisions in that game are brilliant. It's
Tom, I haven't played it, and I'm upset about
it. It's crazy good. You are gonna love it, Matt. It is. It does some.
Does anybody own it? Did you buy it?
I don't have it. Ben has it though.
Should I just buy it for the podcast? It's $95. What are you doing, DGG?
I know.
I know.
That's the only reason I don't have it. That's the only reason I don't have it. By the time I found out about it, it was so expensive. But it is a great economic game. It is a really interesting
Think it's got legs?
economic game. I don't know. I don't know if it has legs. I know that the first 3 to 10 plays are going to be dynamite.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
Then,
well, that's a lot. What is that? 30, 40 hours of gameplay?
Yeah, it is. It's a lot. And then it might be too fragile. Don't know. Can't say. But and also, I think that the intentionality of the design was amazing. I think that at the end of the day, I didn't feel what they wanted me to feel from it. And maybe
no, it was one of my favorite. It was maybe my favorite review of yours this year. I love hearing a review of a game I've never played before. And you guys definitely got me hyped to try it.
Yeah, that was my biggest surprise. The cost was an incredible experience, and I hope and pray that there are going to be a lot more games that surprise me in terms of the design of a game and the intention of a game. I think is incredible.
Yeah.
Was there a game?
Shall we do? Oh yeah, go ahead.
I just have a couple more questions that we can ask.
We're gonna hear everybody's top 3 new to them games of 2021. So stick around for that.
Yeah. I think I just got 2 more questions. So I'll just ask.
Yeah, please. These are great.
Was there a game changer in 2020? Was there anything that came out, much in the way Wingspan was a game changer, much in the way, let's say, Pandemic Legacy was a game changer? Was there anything that was a game changer this year?
I don't think so. Other than, I mean, you had brought this up, so I guess I'm cribbing from you.
No,
but I think 18 Chesapeake could be a game changer.
Yeah.
In that it is an attractive package and a reasonable price. And a semi-easy teach, and could actually bring in, for the first time ever, maybe a large amount of new people into the 18xx hobby.
Yeah, I could not agree more. I think 18 Chesapeake, the problem with 18xx is it's so good, but that first play is hard. And is there a way we can get people playing 18xx games without that first play being so hard to learn, so hard to start playing, so brutal in the way it plays and all that sort of stuff? Is there a way we can just, is there a learner's version of 18xx? And the design has been heading that way, right? There's 1889 was much more light friendly. There's 1846 is a much simpler version in a lot of ways. 18 Chesapeake is by far a more stripped down, more elegant, more simple version of 18xx, and might just be the bridge where we can bring a lot of people into that side of the hobby. So I totally agree.
I will say one thing I think, which probably will end up being the biggest change from this year, or the biggest addition to this year, is I really hope that all publishers learn that there is nothing negative about having an online implementation of your game for free.
Yeah.
I know there's an extra cost to it for the most part for designers, for publishers, in order to have an online implementation made. I don't need you to give me a BGA, Board Game Arena implementation. I know those are difficult and time intensive and potentially expensive.
Though if you could, we'd love it.
But we'd appreciate it. But everybody has some fans out there who are going to make TTS mods for you. Don't pull them off.
Yep.
Don't ban them. I really strongly, and you know what? If somebody's got proof and numbers that they are losing money by these things going up there, I'd love to see them, because I just don't believe it exists. I only think you don't. Do you know how many copies of games I've bought this year from just playing a TTS mod?
Yep.
Like, I just think our hobby is good enough that we're going to support your mods, like get it out there for people so they can try, and so that they can play with people from around the world, or from people at different, a lot of people can't even make it to game night. It's a privilege to be able to have a babysitter and go to a game night, or to be able to stay up late when you have work the next morning. Like those are privileges that not everybody can afford. And I think that board games should be available to everybody. And I think you'll make money by doing it. I really strongly do.
And this is coming from content creators. Matt and I, we make a lot of the money that puts diapers on our children from royalties for the things that we have produced. So when we're saying give it away in this way, it's not coming from people that don't know what we're talking about. It's not people that don't also have skin in the game, as it were. There's, unfortunately, it gets into that whole argument about torrenting, right? And there is that study, that very large study that came out that said people that torrent music buy more music than people that don't torrent music. That doesn't mean that torrenting doesn't have issues.
Didn't destroy the music industry.
Well, did it? was the industry or was the industry completely dying?
The question is if it was inevitable is different, but
was it completely and utterly dying before?
It's also different. I don't think it's a fair thing to say like, well, Matt, do you want Love and Monsters to be downloaded for free from everywhere? Of course I don't. But I don't think that's fair because the experience of you paying for it and watching it is exactly the same.
Yes.
The experience of playing a game on TTS and playing it at a table in front of you is not the same. No, it would be more like, do I mind if people watch a blurry black and white version of my movie with no sound? Sure, go for it. You can watch that for free if you want. I imagine if you make it through more than 5 minutes, you might want to pay for it and buy it. That to me is a much more fair analogy for playing something on TTS. I think also I would strongly say that I'm not okay with people playing a game on TTS more than once or twice if someone in their group doesn't own it. Yes. I would. Yes. I don't think I wouldn't be okay with somebody playing a game that nobody in their group owns 100 times on TTS. I think that is probably not cool. And at that point, you've gotten so much joy out of it. Everyone in your group who's enjoyed it with you, throw $5 in, buy a copy.
And by the way, just while we're on the subject, the best torrent of Love and Monsters that's out there is by Jerk Monster. Jerk Monster's torrent is.
I'm sure there are many.
It is he put the camera at the right spot in the back of the theater and just really.
You can hear him getting COVID in the theater while he's recording it. It's fantastic.
He suffers for his art. Jerk Monster does. It was really wonderful. Let's get to it. Let's get to the top three. Maddie, how about we do it this way? How about we list other people's, and then for you and I, we'll do, you say your number three, I'll say my number three, and so on and so forth.
Of course.
Is that okay with you?
Absolutely. Do you want to start or do you want me to start?
You start.
First up is Jennifer Schlickman, the game pioneer.
By the way, shout out to Jennifer. She is crushing it. She's doing video reviews and commentary and unboxings and all sorts of stuff. She is all over the geek and she's crushing it.
I'm extremely jealous of the amount of games she plays both in person and online. And she's definitely the most influential gamer in my life this year. And she's the one who got me to play Anno. She taught me so many games this year. I've had such a great time playing games with her.
Yeah. And she got her first shot, by the way. So she's halfway inoculated.
Well, that's wonderful. And yes, so my number one gamer of the year is Jennifer Schlickman.
Hear, hear.
Her top three are Anno 1800, Pendulum, and Pan Am. Very interesting. I own Pendulum and haven't played it yet because I don't think an online implementation of that would do it justice. So that's one game I have yet to get to the table because it is a real-time game where you're like, having to move pieces around. And
I own it as well and haven't played it either.
And Pan Am, when I read that on her list, I was like, oh yeah, I really love Pan Am. Man, I want to play that more. Pan Am's great.
Pan Am is I said elegant too much this episode, so apologize, but it's elegant. I don't love it. It doesn't really push my buttons, but it's an elegant implementation. It's really good at what it does.
It's like playing Pandemic in reverse.
Yeah, that is.
It is. It's doing the opposite of Pandemic, but it's really fun. It's like it's hard to explain why, but it really does feel like playing Pandemic backwards.
I'm going to give the top three of Candace. Candace is basically an honorary game brainer. We love her to death. The work that she does at BGG is absolutely fantastic. And
she wrote an incredible piece on coin games this week that is a must read for anybody in our hobby.
Yeah, and as a matter of fact,
you can find that on Board Game Geek, obviously,
and you can find it on which coin game was she reviewing in particular? Because
it's the one about Sweden, I think.
Yes.
A Bridge Too Far or something like that.
Yeah, and they put it on. They love the review so much that they put it on their site as well. So Candace is.
I don't think it's called A Bridge Too Far. That's a movie.
It's definitely not what that is called. But her top three for this year were Imperial Struggle number one.
All bridges burning. Red Revolt and White Guard in Finland.
There you go.
Okay, I couldn't have been more wrong.
Finland's close. I'm gonna give it to you.
Okay. What's Candace's top three?
Imperial Struggle, number one. Imperial Struggle, you might be hearing that some more. Dune Imperium was her number two. Dude.
Have you played it, Tom?
I own it. I have read the rules. I can't wait.
It's fun.
It was under the tree. My family bought it for me.
Oh,
I think
that's
my
awesome.
son figured out that I wanted it and got it for me. So that was really sweet.
Yeah. Paul and I played it once. I played one 2-player game of it. The 2-player game works really well with a really simple bot. A really simple, like not coin, like, oh God, I have to control the bot. Let's pull out the flowchart.
It doesn't
really
seem like
simple.
2 is the way it should be played, though, right? I mean, it seems like it's going to sing at the higher counts, right?
Potentially, yeah. But at 2, it felt pretty great because that bot really does a good job of making it feel like a 3-player game. Really gets in your face.
People are really liking it. I can't wait. I can't wait to play it. I'm really looking forward to it. And her number 3 was, as we already mentioned today, 18 Chesapeake. Was her absolute number 3. And she wrote a little note here. Here are older games that she played for the first time in 2020 and loved. Too Many Bones, Santiago. She reached out to me and said, thank you for talking about Santiago so much. I played it and absolutely love it. Nippon, Concordia. She'd never played Concordia until last year. Wow. And, oh, wow, look at that. Labyrinth, War on Terror. Awesome. And on the first day of 2021,
New Year's Day,
she played TI 4. She played Twilight Imperium 4.
which I've never played.
My apologies, Candace. I'm sorry that you had to go through that.
Such a hater.
I am really a hater. I am such a hater of that game.
All right. Ben Mandelker, who does all the extra credit homework, wrote an essay here, but I'll start with his top 3.
He gave us gave us each an apple. He's so sweet.
Number 1, controversial pick, as it's a Kickstarter game, but we that's why we called this
new to you.
top 3 games you have played that were new to you this year. New to you. So if you had never played, Hansa Teutonica before, that's fine. And Transcontinental is a 2021 game. Ben's number 1 game of the year, Transcontinental. Number 2, 18 Chesapeake. Number 3, Smartphone Inc., a game that I own that I have never played. How do you feel about Smartphone Inc.?
I like it. It's a really solid game. It's an economic game that I don't think is better than other economic games. So it's not at the top of my pantheon, but there's so many really smart things about the way that the game was designed. It's very simple in a lot of ways, but there is this, I guess, polyomino, except all the polyominoes are the same shape aspect, where you're putting a board on top of a board and you're programming how many actions of each type you're going to be able to do by arranging these things on your board. And it was a game changer. It was really smart. I was like, oh my goodness, the choices, the things that that this little puzzle I'm figuring out tell me that I can either do this or this. What I really want to do is neither of those two. Which of these 2 options that I'm left with am I going to take? Is fantastic. Really good.
And Alfred just texted me his top 3 right now.
Oh, how about that?
He was one of the only ones we were waiting for. I have him and Jesse in here too. We got them both.
You got Jesse? Oh, awesome.
Yeah. So now we have everybody.
Should I go to Elder?
Down to the wire. Well, look, Ben wrote a whole bunch of stuff here. I'm just going to read it really quick for him. Okay. His top 10, if we want to hear the rest: On Mars, Bonfire, Anno 1800, Brick and Mortar, Hallertau, Fast Sloths, and The Cost. Good luck saying Hallertau and Fast Sloths. Back.
That's not good.
Top 10 games he hadn't played until this year, but he probably should have: Architects of the West, Maria, Roads and Boats, Automobile, CO2, Taverns of Tiefenthal, Macau and the Year of the Dragon, D. Mocker and Noosford. Favorite expansions: Railroad Evolution, Underwater Cities, Food Chain Magnet, Ketchup Mechanic, Heaven and Ale, and Railways of Portugal. Boom. There you go, Ben. I read it all. Thank you for always going the extra mile for us.
Yes. Elder's number 1 game of 2020 was Anno 1800. His number 2, On Mars. Controversial. I think a lot of people might have put On Mars on if they didn't kind of consider it a 2019 game.
Even though BGG considers it 2020, and there's a whole controversy about that. But that's why we don't care, because this is the top 3 games that were new to you.
But asterisk on Mars, because a lot of us might have it in our top 3 if we had considered it as a 2020 release. Number 3, Bonfire. Stefan Feld coming back.
Have you played Bonfire yet?
I have not. Played.
I'd love to play with you.
I'm really looking forward to it. I love classic Feld, and this feels like a return to classic Feld. So
it's the heaviest game he's ever made.
Can't wait.
Yeah. Trey's top 3. Number 1, Transcontinental. Number 2, this shocked me to my shoes. Gloomhaven.
No, it
Jaws
is.
of the Lion.
No, you said it right the first time.
Gloomhaven. I would love to play
Gloomhaven.
Gloomhaven. That sounds amazing, actually. And number 3, Oceans. Oceans is fantastic. It's definitely, it'd be in my top 3 games I wish I had played more this year.
I didn't love Oceans. I liked Oceans. I admired it, but I didn't love it.
I love it. And yeah, I love that he put Gloomhaven on here. It's the Jaws of the Lion is definitely my preferred version. I had a lot of fun with it. And I know that Trey played with a friend of his and made it pretty far in the campaign. And that's cool that he put it on the list.
It's awesome. Paul said, number 1, Transcontinental. Oh boy, are you noticing something? Number 2, Anno 1800. And number 3, Imperial Struggle. Paul is he's just so vanilla, right? He doesn't, nothing out of the ordinary. He picks the same thing everyone else picked. It's just,
I mean, he picked 3 of the best games of the year. That's what we're doing here.
But he's just so basic. Come on. Can I pick on my brother?
That's not basic. How's that basic?
He's just so basic, right? It's just vanilla. There's no flavor there.
Oh my gosh. So rude. I'm sorry, Paul. I'm trying to defend you here.
What you got?
Jake is next. Jake's top 3 are Lost Ruins of Arnak, Yokohama, and In the Year of the Dragon. Like we said, top 3 games that were new to you in 2020, not necessarily top 3 games released in 2020.
Now, did he review that before we did our episode that we just did last week?
What?
I think he picked those games before we did our episode, right?
Yes, he did.
He did.
Oh, he would have put the crew on there, right? Is what you're saying?
100%.
Yeah,
no question about it. Dimitri's top 3. Number 1, Beyond the Sun. Number 2, Eclipse, Second Dawn of the Galaxy. Number 3, Oceans. And special mention, his number 4 would have been Cell Phone Inc.
Or as it's called, Smartphone Inc. But God bless him.
Well, he tries. He tries. He does the best
Let's
he can.
do. I've got Alfred's and Jesse's here.
Do it.
Coming in hot off the presses. Alfred's top 3. The only person to mention this, and I really appreciate it, is number 1 is Praga Caput Regni, which I would love to teach you, Tom, which I think is fantastic. And the only reason that it's maybe not on my top 3 is because I just haven't played it enough. Anno 1800 is Alfred's 2, and Marco Polo 2 is his number 3.
Oh, interesting.
Let's do Jesse's here. Jesse's top 3 are number 1, Imperial Struggle. Number 2, Oceans. Number 3, this one he said, well, his number 3, I think, is a 3-way tie between Gloomhaven, Jaws of the Lion, The Crew, and Pandemic Legacy Zero, which he said he hasn't even played, but he imagines it would be a top 3 for him.
Oh, come on, Jesse. That's awesome. I will say I also would love to play Pandemic Season 0. I hear great things about it. I would love to do it at some point. The problem is how do we arrange that? How does that happen?
Yeah, okay. I'm good.
You hate working together with anybody, so that's
well, when it comes to board games, yeah, I enjoy it in real life.
Some might say not so much, but
all right, you want to do your top 3?
Let's both do our top 3.
Ooh,
okay. Let's start with
3.
Number 3, or you know what? We should probably start with number 1 because I think my number 1. Tell you what,
yeah,
my number 1 for the year, and it wasn't close. This is the game that head and shoulders above the rest was the best game of the year for me. Imperial Struggle was an absolute masterpiece. Manny, what was your number 1?
My number 1, and it wasn't even close. It was head and shoulders above every other game this year, is Imperial Struggle. If you had asked me if I felt good about putting a game about colonialism in 2020 as my number 1 game of the year, I'd tell you no, I do not. We did a whole episode where we talked about that. You can hear our thoughts on that as well. I think the game handles it in a much better and more respectful bird's eye view than it has in the past. It also helps that one of the designers is a POC who has been very outspoken about his beliefs on colonialism. Regardless, the game is in my top 10 of all time. I don't think I've ever had more fun playing a board game than I've had playing Imperial Struggle. I would prefer to play it over Twilight Struggle, their previous game, 10 out of 10 times. and I absolutely adore it. And I look forward to playing it literally for the rest of my life.
I wonder if I'm going to end up liking it more than playing Twilight Struggle. Just because Twilight Struggle is in my top 3 games of all time. So I don't know, and I played it so much that there's it burned into my heart is a love for that. But the fact that the first time I played Imperial Struggle, I said, "Oh my God, this is so much of what I love about that," and these other elements that just are so many wonderful, amazing, agonizing choices, and this constant battle that is ongoing over the course of the game. Just astonishing, absolutely astonishing game. Could not get better.
It's incredible, and I do like it more than Twilight Struggle easily. I can say that.
Sure, yeah, but you're a Twilight Struggle lightweight. You're a tourist in the Twilight Struggle world. All right.
Sure.
What is your number 2?
My number 2 is Anno 1800. It blew me away. It restored my faith in Martin Wallace and heavy games. It plays like nothing else I've ever played, honestly. And it's a completely new type of worker placement game. It does feel kind of revolutionary. And like, how did this person who's been designing games for this long have another gear to shift into and come up with all this new stuff that is pretty mind-boggling? And I think it is a game that deserves, like we had talked about Hallertau, like, is this a tournament level game? Anno 1800 is a tournament worthy game. This is a game that I think will highly reward competitive play, and I think is very balanced and highly competitive.
My number 2 game of the year is Anno 1800.
Wow, which we have never played. I would love to play this with you.
I would love to play it with you as well.
I've probably played this almost as much as Hallertau this year. I'd say I've probably played it 15 to 20 times.
I mean, you can probably tell that Anno 1800 is a Tom game. It is 100% a Tom game. Like finding the perfect move. I love the fact that the actions are so small and quick, and it's right back to you fairly in fairly short order.
And this is the ultimate mat game too. I mean, there is no more game that you will find that is being handed a pile of crap and being asked to build something out of it.
Yeah. I love the fact that, I see echoes of so many older games in this. The fact that you get these people cards that you can fulfill what they want, and then they get and then they give you points. That is so Princess of Florence, right? Princess of Florence, you have right. There are so many. It's almost like, when I look at the way he designed this game, it almost looks like Easter eggs of some of my favorite games that nobody talks about anymore. And he's put it together in something that feels whole. It doesn't feel like it
feels new and old at the same time.
Yeah. I can't wait to play it more. I look forward to. I think this one could be. Right now, I think it's 8.5, something like that. It could go. Could go much higher. Totally. I just need to play it more.
Yeah.
And my number 3 game, I decided to go with something that is released, a 2020 game. And after a long thought, I really had a tough time with this, because I had some things that were. I'll say the honorable mentions. The honorable mentions are The Cost and Tawantinsuyu. I loved Tawantinsuyu. I thought it was really amazing. And The Cost, I've already gushed about so many of the things I like about that game. But at the end,
but my honorable mentions: Praga Caput Regni, which needs more plays; Bonfire, Tawantinsuyu, Fort, which I think is fantastic, and I played a ton of Fort this year. I really enjoy it. I think it's a really, really fun filler. Kalis 1303, Oceans, and Babylonia.
Well, it's funny that you should say Fort, because my number 3 is The Crew. At the end of the day, as I was thinking about it, now sure, I just reviewed it last week, so it's very fresh in my mind. But I for the year that 2020 was, I don't think that I got more just pure joy than playing The Crew. I think it is kind of an instant classic. It is a very accessible game and very easy to understand. But the idea of taking a trick-taking game, which in card games are the most brutal, take that, smash the other person, and competitive games, and to, in a very elegant way, turn it into a cooperative game that is just completely engrossing. Absolutely love it. Absolutely love the crew. Well done.
Amazing.
What's your number 3?
Yeah, I had a lot of fun with it. It's a really fun game. But you know me, I don't like working with people.
I hear you.
My number 3 is the game we reviewed today. It is Uwe Rosenberg's final big box game, Hallertau. Yeah, I just had it's funny because it made me fall in love with Uwe Rosenberg in a way I never had before. It made me I've literally played every big box game that he has ever designed since I played Hallertau, because I became obsessed with making sure that I had played all of them and owned all of them. So now I own every big box Uwe game other than Mercator, which is impossible to get. Would I even rank it in the top half? I
didn't love Mercator, by the way. I'll let you know.
Really?
Yeah, it's good. It's good, not great.
Yeah. I don't know if I'd rank it in my top half of Uwe games. I can say I like it more than Converna. I can say I like it more than... Maybe that's it. I don't know. I need to play it more. I really love it though. But that's like saying what's your favorite Stanley Kubrick movie? I don't know. They're all great.
Yeah. I won the debate. Just to be clear, I won the debate. All right.
You had the winning side of the debate, but I won the debate.
I clearly won the debate.
I convicted I put somebody in jail that shouldn't have been there. Let's see. Or I freed a guilty man. That's what I did.
Pretty sure I won the debate. We're running out of time. Should we close this up and get to a sommelier?
Sure, let's do it. Let's end this up right.
Here we go.
Sometimes a player just got to know which game should stay, which game should go, which to play with mama, madame, abou. You got to tell me, monsieur, just what to do. Want to make an impression, but I can't get far with my 50th player of Agricola. A million games, show me the way to the master, the game sommelier.
This is how long you should let it play, Matt.
Oh, are we still recording?
This is how long you should let it play, all right? You're cutting it off too soon, all right? People are complaining, all right? People love that French guy.
I'm being flooded with emails.
He's the best. There's several Facebook posts on it. Our Gorgeous Sommelier this week is from John Beckett Schreiber. And he said, "Hey, Game Brainers, love the show, and I've been inspired by all the talk of heavy Euros, thus the sommelier question. I have a buddy that enjoys two-player games the most, but he also really likes heavy games that are on the light side of luck and not abstract. He will happily play Great Western Trail if he's Froden, 2 players at the top of the hat, at the drop of a hat. Also big into Uwe Rosenberg games in general, making most of them an insta-buy. Meanwhile, I have a collection gap in that I have neither a Vital Lacerda game nor a Splatter game. I too enjoy heavy games, but also like multiplayer aspects of games. Thus, I am looking for a suggestion for a Lacerda or a Splatter that plays well at 2 and at a higher player count. Thanks again for a great show that I can also subject my kids to on longer drives. John." Thanks, John. You've come to the right place. Vital Lacerda and Splatter.
Neither one of those things do I think of when I think of great 2-player games.
I think that you're right. You're absolutely right. That's why it's a tricky question. But yeah. I have thoughts. So here's Lacerda is harder than Splatter. Splatter, there are actually quite a number of Splatter games that play very well at 2. So we'll get to that. I will say that the modular Splatter games work very well at 2. Roads and Boats is fantastic at 2. And can be and also works very well at 4, but it might be at its best as a 2-player game. I'll also say Antiquity is another one of those games that. Oh,
does it play good at 2? Okay, I didn't know that.
It plays quite good at 2. Yes, it really does. Okay. So definitely those 2 games. Which, by the way, Antiquity is probably my favorite Splatter game.
I don't know if I've ever played Food Chain Magnate at 2.
I haven't played it at 2, so I can't speak to it, but
it doesn't strike me as great at 2.
I think it could be, though.
Could be. Yeah,
maybe. If you think
about it, if you've played it before, let us know on our Facebook group how it plays. I'd be very interested to know.
Because the board is modular, so it shrinks down to that size. And
sure, it's just there doesn't seem to be enough blocking in the tech trees. You could both easily go I don't know, you can sort of just do your own thing a little bit, it feels like.
Maybe. I think you do reduce the number of cards in each slot at the player
Yeah.
tables. So
Okay. All
it
right.
could be, but definitely those two for that. Lacerda's tougher though, right? Lacerda is tougher because
Well, yeah, I don't know. I mean, yeah, go ahead.
my first thought is I think On Mars is the answer. Because
Well, I was just going to say pick your favorite your favorite Lacerda, and I think it plays fine at 2. I mean, I don't know if any of them sing at 2, but On Mars would be my favorite Lacerda, so I would go for that. I think I've played it at 2. It plays fine. It plays totally fine.
Yeah, I don't think all Lacerdas do though. So for instance, I don't think that Kanban would be particularly good at 2 players. I think that it is a race game on these various certifications and all that sort of stuff. So
Kanban EV has the bots. I think you can throw a bot in there on the 2-player game, I think.
maybe so. EV might be a different story, but base Kanban, not a good game for that. I don't think Gallerist would play particularly well at 2-player because there's nothing scaling down. Whereas the semi-modular board and the design of On Mars is sort of more set up for that. I actually think Lisboa probably plays better at 2 than a lot of.
Lisboa I've heard that people like that at 2, and I think Vinos would be fine at 2. I don't really. I think because the board gets smaller, right?
No, I don't think it does.
Oh, I thought. Oh, really? You don't just like cut out certain sections of Italy or something?
I don't believe you do. I'm not 100% on that, but I don't believe you do. So I think Vinos is. I think the most recent, the more Baroque, the Vital Lacerda, I think the better that's going to play at the lower counts. That's my guess.
Lisboa and On Mars is. I mean, those are probably arguably 2, other than Kanban, 2 of his best games. So.
Well, a lot of people think the Gallerist is his best game.
That's true.
Right, so that's good as well. But yeah, so weirdly, I think the answer to these questions are Lacerda, go with the newest Lacerdas to play well up to 2 players, and with Splatter, go toward the older plays to get a better 2-player game.
I think I would also just say go get Fields of Arle if you don't have it.
Oh yeah. Fields of Arle is just so fantastic.
If you want a heavy 2-player only game, just get Fields of Arle.
You're such an Uwe Rosenberg fan. I'm glad I've converted you. It's really amazing. Maddie, I love you dearly, and I miss playing games with. I miss you most of all, Scarecrow. I really do, and I want to get.
Love you too, man. And this was a good 2021 recap. I mean, 2020 recap, and 2021 will be a year that I am back in your office and you were back in mine, and we were playing games at some point.
Can't wait. Everybody else, just keep your heads down for a little bit longer. There's help on the way, and hopefully we'll all get it and be able to share in this hobby face to face. Looking forward.
Keep your masks on. Don't give up now. Stay vigilant. 100%. We're almost done. Hey, if you enjoyed that video, you very well might enjoy the other videos you now see being suggested to you on screen. Also, we'd greatly appreciate it if you could like, share, or subscribe to our Game Brain channel. Thanks so much.